Congratulations on completing the first leg of your journey and your decision to continue. Now you are poised to take yet another step into a larger world. This is a world where self-knowledge and instinct guide your consciousness towards the higher levels of awareness that deliver self-health. On this leg of the journey, I will explain and clarify further two of the three dimensions of the self-health system, the mind and the body. In part 1, you learn that you possess an inner core populated by higher and lower instincts. You also learn that consciousness, influenced both by instinct and acquired knowledge, must find a way to express and fulfill the needs of the inner core. Consciousness, the ship's captain, must see to it that the important wants, needs, and desires of the inner core are recognized and satisfied in a way that nurtures self-development. As captain of our ship, consciousness plays a major role in determining whether or not we reach our destination. Unfortunately, recognizing and satisfying the needs of the inner core is no simple matter. In fact, it is rather complex and difficult. But just like with all things, nature has equipped consciousness with the tools it needs to succeed. It has empowered consciousness with the opposing forces of conscious and unconscious awareness. Together, the conscious and unconscious minds engage consciousness in processing awareness stemming from the needs of the mind, body, and spirit. In the course of our daily routines, we do not distinguish conscious awareness from unconscious awareness. They naturally and automatically blend together, sometimes cooperating, sometimes competing for control. Still, both minds, each in their own unique and mysterious way, is working to promote self-health. Therefore, it is of great consequence for self-health that the two minds form a cooperative relationship where they share the same goal in steering consciousness. This is best achieved when the unconscious is understood by the conscious mind and seen as a valued partner. Inner space, the infinite frontier. This is a voyage of story and study fashioned for you. Its purpose? To reveal to you the universe of mind, body, and spirit, to boldly take you where no one has taken you before. I dare say that the relationship between the conscious and unconscious, metaphorically speaking, is much like the relationship between the sun and the moon. Just as the moon absorbs the sunlight and converts it to moonlight, the conscious mind takes unconscious thought and transforms it into conscious thought. Just as the moon appears to be independent of the sun as it shines its brightest at night, the conscious mind seems to be independent of the unconscious because the unconscious works without being noticed. Therefore, it would be easy to go through life without an appreciation or adequate understanding of the unconscious. The conscious mind, guided by the ego, has an awareness of its own. Unable to hear its silent partner, thinks it works all alone. Always in the background of experience, going unrecognized as it serves, the unconscious asks for a relationship with you, yet it's not heard. Forgetting not what you've been through, the unconscious honors and protects, cherishes the conscious mind with whom it wishes to connect. Recognition it asks for none as it works tirelessly. Expression it must have if you are to fulfill your destiny. Therefore, I invite you to take advantage of this opportunity to learn more about the unconscious and its relationship with the conscious mind. Opportunity is knocking, so I suggest you take advantage of it and forever change your life. To begin with, let me define the unconscious by quoting a renowned psychiatrist by the name of Carl Jung. Jung defined the unconscious as everything of which I know, but of which I am not at the moment thinking. Everything of which I was once conscious, but have now forgotten. Everything perceived by my senses, but not noted by my conscious mind. Everything which involuntarily and without paying attention to it, I feel, think, remember, want, and do. All the future things that are taking shape in me and will sometime come to consciousness. All this is the content of the unconscious. Simply put, Dr. Jung is telling us that the unconscious perceives and does many things not noticed by the conscious mind, which nonetheless influence us. He is also saying the unconscious is the storehouse of all the things we have learned, many of which we have forgotten, but which serve us in our automatic behavior. Dr. Jung knew then what science is telling us today, that the unconscious is a mental powerhouse. It's a mental powerhouse not only because of its ability to perceive and its terrific memory, but also because it is that part of the mind where the real self resides. The studies that follow will not only verify Dr. Jung's definition of the unconscious, they will also show the tremendous impact the unconscious has on the conscious mind. The research about to be shared with you is an important first step towards fine-tuning your conscious mind so it can have a more cooperative relationship with the unconscious. A researcher by the name of Dr. Michael Gazzaniga performed some fascinating experiments on epileptics who underwent a surgical procedure to disconnect the two hemispheres of their brain. Surgeons severed their corpus callosum, a cable that connects the two brains, to cure their otherwise incurable epilepsy. Dr. Gazzaniga took what started out as a surgical procedure and transformed it into a golden opportunity to study the brain working as two independent halves. I'll explain. In the normal intact brain, information presented to either side is easily and quickly named because the information can move freely from one side of the brain to the other. This is not the case, however, with the split brain patient. In the split brain patient, information presented to one brain cannot be shared with the other because the cable connecting the two brains is no longer working. Therefore, information presented to the right of a fixed point can be named as normal because it still goes to the side of the brain responsible for speech, the left brain. However, when information is presented to the left of a fixed point, the split brain patient is unable to name it because it remains stuck in the right brain, which is mute and unable to speak. In one of these experiments, a split brain patient was shown two pictures simultaneously, one to the left talking brain and one to the right non-talking brain. The talking brain was shown a hammer, while the non-talking brain viewed a saw. When asked what he had seen, the patient responded by saying he had seen a hammer. However, when asked to draw with his left hand, which was controlled by the non-talking brain, he drew a saw. When asked why he drew a saw when he reported seeing a hammer, the patient responded with, "I don't know." This experiment shows how the non-talking brain can see things and influence behavior without the talking brain knowing that it has. It shows us what can happen if the two brains are working independent of each other in this manner. It can literally chip away at our ability to understand ourselves. This study, as well as the ones that follow, underscore how important it is for the two brains to be in communication with each other. It is no different from two people needing to talk to each other to have a healthy relationship. If the two brains are not communicating, it handicaps the ability to know and understand the self. If the two brains are not working together, you will get an accumulation of situations where the conscious mind has one point of view while the unconscious has another, putting the two at odds with each other. Obviously, we don't have a split brain like the subjects in these experiments. Nonetheless, our minds can work independent of each other. For example, several years ago while working at a mental health center, a colleague asked me if I had received a referral on a particular client. I confidently responded with, "No, I have not received a referral nor seen the client." I was so sure of my answer consciously, I did not give it another thought. The inquiry happened on a Friday. That following Sunday evening, out of nowhere, what popped into my mind but the fact that I had seen the client. When I returned to work the next day, I updated my colleague. You see, my conscious mind had one point of view, while my unconscious had another. So my unconscious, without my conscious awareness, began an exhaustive search of my memory banks until it found what it needed to correct my conscious thinking. In another experiment, a patient was again shown two pictures simultaneously. This time a picture of a chicken claw was flashed to the talking brain and a picture of a snow scene to the non-talking brain. After seeing the pictures, the patient was then asked to choose matching pictures from an array of available pictures. The correct choices were a chicken for the chicken claw and a shovel for the snow scene. The patient in fact chose the correct pictures. Although the right pictures were picked, the reasoning was off. When asked why he had chosen the pictures he did, he responded with, "That's easy. The chicken claw goes with the chicken, and you need a shovel to clean out the chicken shit." Since the talking brain did not have access to the image of the snow scene as it remained stuck in the non-talking brain, it could not include that information in its analysis of why the shovel was picked. Because of this, he misinterpreted his own behavior. This experiment shows how we can pick up information unconsciously, but if not shared with the conscious mind, instead of leading to an "I don't know," leads to the wrong conclusion. The conscious mind made the wrong connection because the talking brain was missing an important piece of the puzzle. If this kind of not knowing and misinterpreting takes place time after time, because the two brains are not talking to each other, it will create division within, as well as misunderstandings with others. This is why being in denial causes such problems. It will push things up, it will push things down. It will look everywhere, but not always tell you what it has found. It can set your secrets free, or keep them stored away. It does need to comprehend, it doesn't need to agree. It does its own thinking no matter what you think consciously. So you better face the facts. There's more to your thinking than meets the eye. Better get acquainted with your unconscious, and don't let the relationship die. In a somewhat different experiment, the command walk was flashed only to the non-talking brain. Immediately, the patient stood up from his chair and started to leave the testing van. When asked where he was going, his talking brain said, "I'm going to the house to get a Coke."
It's puzzling. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
In this example, we find the subject prompted into action by the unconscious or by the command walk that had been flashed to the unconscious non-talking brain. The conscious talking brain notices the behavior that was prompted unconsciously, but assigns meaning and purpose to the action based on its own wants, needs, and desires. In this case, the desire for a Coke. What this experiment demonstrates is that our actions can be motivated by the unconscious, but misinterpreted and redirected by the needs of the conscious mind. If this were to happen enough times, as it does for some people, the unconscious would become extremely frustrated and somehow force the conscious mind to pay attention. To keep this from happening, you need to understand that the unconscious collaborates and makes decisive contributions to the conscious mind. More often than not, the first step of a conscious decision occurs at the unconscious level, which is then communicated to the conscious mind by way of the spontaneous idea, the hunch, or an intuition. In this way, the unconscious plays a role. So it is not conscious effort alone that is responsible for awareness or behavior. Somewhere or other, the unconscious, with its barely discernible goals and intentions, has its finger in the pie. Therefore, it behooves the conscious mind to understand what the unconscious is trying to express. Once, while listening to the radio in my car, I found myself turning on the heat without quite realizing it. As I paid closer attention to the words of the song, I realized why. I was unconsciously responding to the line, "The heat is on." Another time, I was in a restaurant playing with the straw to my drink when I got the idea to pretend the straw was a flute. Next thing I knew, I heard flute music playing in the background. Both of these are common everyday examples of how the conscious mind can be influenced by unconscious awareness. It was not until I had reflected on my surroundings and my behavior that I realized consciously how my actions had been influenced. Our surroundings seep into the unconscious without our quite realizing it and spark needed ideas that become the catalyst for conscious insights, interests, and innovative solutions. It is helpful, therefore, to look around to see what might be influencing your thinking and your actions indirectly. It is helpful to look around not only to be more aware of what might be influencing you, but also to spark your imagination. You need to appreciate that unconscious awareness not only influences our thinking and our actions, it also influences our emotions. In another experiment, the non-talking brain, or the unconscious mind, was shown a series of film vignettes that included violent scenes where people were being thrown into a fire. After viewing these scenes, the patient's conscious mind responded with, "I don't know what I saw. I think just a white flash, maybe some trees like the fall. I don't know why, but I feel kind of scared. I feel jumpy. I don't like this room, or maybe it's you getting me nervous." This experiment shows us that things we aren't aware of consciously can influence us emotionally. Not being aware of it consciously doesn't make it go away. It only makes it easier to transfer it onto other people or situations, even though they are not the cause. This can result in us having negative feelings towards someone or taking out negative feelings on someone when the source of the feelings lie elsewhere. Unfortunately, we don't know that these feelings are being displaced. It's like waking up on the wrong side of the bed and then taking it out on anybody in the line of fire. These results, although achieved with split-brain patients, still gives us a window into some of the ways the two minds work in the normal brain. These studies begin to show us how important it is to be able to see things not only from the conscious mind's perspective, but also from an unconscious perspective. To do this, your conscious mind must break out of its limited thinking by overcoming 3 obstacles. The first obstacle is for the conscious mind to break through its fear and doubt of the unconscious. The second obstacle is understanding your various unconscious competencies so the conscious mind can take advantage of them. The third and final obstacle is creatively putting the talents of the unconscious to use in everyday life. This voyage into the dimension of mind, with its conscious and unconscious awareness, tells us that an inadequate relationship between the conscious and unconscious mind will more than likely produce problems with understanding self and others. These are problems that develop because a significant degree of distortion or blockage has taken place in the flow of information from one brain to the other or one mind to the other. Such distortions or blockages will result in symptoms like anxiety, nightmares, poor concentration, physical problems, feeling out of control, or destructive behaviors of all kinds. Unfortunately, we usually focus on the symptoms rather than the real problem because we mistake the symptom for the problem. Dealing with the symptom doesn't fix the problem, however, because the problem lies in the flow of information from one brain to another or one mind to the other. The symptoms are merely nature's way of letting you know that self-expression is either being blocked or distorted. All these studies clearly show how the opposing forces of conscious and unconscious awareness need to come together to keep the self-health system in balance. The better the two minds are at working together and check and balancing each other, the better the chances the self will be accurately defined and properly expressed. Before we shift our focus from the mind to the body, let me say that letting destiny deliver as it unfolds will reveal to you more and more just how the two minds can and should work together to temper and restore balance. Now let's turn our focus to the opposing forces that govern the body. If we agree that the opposing forces of conscious and unconscious awareness are important in maintaining balance as a mind, then what opposing forces help the body maintain balance? It would appear that the body uses the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Therefore, just as conscious and unconscious need to come together to keep consciousness balanced, so do the two nervous systems to keep the body in balance. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems naturally cycle back and forth from one nervous system to the other in order to maintain a healthy biological rhythm. To appreciate how important rhythms and cycles are, you need to know that on Earth, everything from algae to humans operate on a 24-hour clock. This 24-hour clock is called the circadian cycle. Practically speaking, this means every 24 hours we need to sleep, awaken, eat, drink, work, play, release surpluses, and replace essentials. Within the 24-hour cycle, there is a 90-minute cycle called the ultradian cycle. This means every 90 minutes, we will reach a point where we need to slow down, where many of our systems of mind and body will need to turn inward for a period of heightened healing and recharging. These cycles obviously play a pivotal role in how we think, our moods, and our overall health. The following examples illustrate how these cycles affect the way things impact us. When rats were given a poison, E. coli endotoxin at 3 in the afternoon, 85% died. When the same dose was given at midnight, only 4% died. In other experiments, mice exposed to loud noises at one time of the day experienced fatal convulsions, while at another, no ill effects were observed. In some cases of hypertension, a patient standing up at 7 in the morning will faint. The same act at 3 in the afternoon will produce no strain. Clearly, things affect us differently depending on where we are in either the 24-hour cycle or the 90-minute cycle. If these cycles are disturbed, like when traveling abroad or into other time zones, we will feel the effects. The effects from disturbing our biological clocks in any manner can range anywhere from jet lag to emotional problems. Therefore, understanding and remaining in sync with these cycles will not only help you physically, but emotionally. The two nervous systems maintain balance by alternating back and forth during the 24-hour and 90-minute cycles. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in when we need to be active as a mind and a body, and the parasympathetic when we need to be passive as a mind and a body. To maintain balance as a body, the two nervous systems must be allowed to shift back and forth according to these 24-hour and 90-minute cycles. This is essential if you want to be at peak performance levels. This means not using too many stimulants to keep you going or too many tranquilizers to slow you down. Instead, you need to be sensitive to the need for sleep, wakefulness, activity, rest, mindless activity, and mental effort. For example, you can be alert to when you feel the need for downtime and somehow make that happen. It might be right after lunch, after a few difficult clients, or around the time you get home from work. This is important because our busy, fast-paced, stimulation-seeking culture tends to emphasize doing and pushing ourselves to our limits. This is an attitude that undermines the passive nervous system because it minimizes our need to daydream, to take time out, or just take it easy for a few minutes. So be in tune with those urges to take a nap, meditate, engage in mindless activity or rest, as they are part of that natural healing response that occurs every 90 minutes. Keep in mind that you need to respect both the active and passive parts of the nervous system. They work together to keep the mind and body balanced. If there are 24 hours in a day, then there are 18 90-minute cycles each and every day. Even when we sleep, we take advantage of this 90-minute cycle as we go into REM sleep, or what is better known as dream sleep. To show how important it is to respect this 90-minute cycle, we would literally die if we went too long without REM sleep. This is a scientific fact. The more we ignore or override these cycles, the more prone we will be to stress-related disease. Every 90 minutes, the parasympathetic nervous system tries to take over for the sympathetic nervous system so that it can restore and heal the mind as well as the body. This part of the cycle allows us to digest information unconsciously, as well as repair any damage done during the active part of the cycle. The sympathetic nervous system serves its purpose when we need to be on the move, working, meeting deadlines, or actively dealing with problems. To maintain optimal health and performance, the parasympathetic nervous system must be allowed to relieve the sympathetic. We are best serving the self-health system by establishing coordinated rhythms and cycles of rest and activity, relaxation and intensity, dreaming and reasoning, daydreaming and analyzing. Today's fast-paced, hectic lifestyles make it easy to ignore the signals put out by the parasympathetic to take a break. It might be that you don't have time, or perhaps you have too much to do. Maybe you have to meet one deadline after another, or maybe you are just afraid things will fall apart if you don't keep pushing. Regardless, the more the parasympathetic nervous system is suppressed, the worse you will perform. After a while, it will become difficult to concentrate and focus, which will increase the number of errors made, as well as your proneness to accidents. The parasympathetic nervous system doesn't need a lot of time, just an average of 10 to 15 minutes every 90 minutes. A small price to pay for self-health and improved performance. A stitch in time saves 9. Abusing or neglecting these cycles can negatively impact self-health by setting off feelings of incompetence, depression, mood swings, problems in relating to others, and a loss of self-esteem. Wouldn't you rather be in sync with these cycles and experience heightened states of physical and mental alertness and energy? In fact, your skills, memory, and creativity will be more consistently at their peak levels if you do. These cycles greatly affect how we feel about ourselves. Therefore, by respecting both the active and passive parts of the 24-hour cycle and the 90-minute cycle, we increase our ability to perform at peak levels more consistently and consequently increase self-esteem. Whereas regularly overriding these cycles triggers a loss of control and irritability. If at first you don't succeed, try again later. You might have just been trying at the wrong point in the cycle. How we take care of our bodies plays a large role in how well our minds work. For example, exercising and staying physically fit improves circulation, which increases the flow of oxygen to the brain and other organs, which improves thinking and feeling. If the professional athlete represents the ultimate in fulfilling one's physical potential, then we see what is possible to some degree for all of us. Most of us are not professional athletes, but we nonetheless need to take responsibility for achieving some level of physical fitness. Realizing the greater part of your potential as a mind and as a body requires a lot of effort, time, and commitment. If you are willing to make the investment, you will find it worth your while. All it requires is having the right information and the right attitude towards your self-health system. This means you can't afford to undermine your self-health system with limiting beliefs that sabotage your mind's unique ability to be conscious of self or that disrupt your biological rhythms and cycles. The research with the split brain patients showed us how important a healthy flow of information between the two minds is if we don't want to chip away at our ability to understand ourselves or misinterpret our actions or those of others. Through these studies, we saw how the conscious mind would distort or misinterpret things because it didn't have access to the information stuck in the mute right brain. Even though the mute right brain doesn't talk, it still communicates. It uses emotion, body language, intuition, and inspiration to communicate the wants, needs, and desires of the mind and the body. So use this prescription to break out of your limited thinking. Let it open up new horizons in both your conscious and unconscious awareness so you can discover your greater potential as a mind and as a body. This concludes part 2 of Letting Destiny Deliver, a prescription for self-help. It is a privilege as creator and host of this prescription to provide you with the knowledge and expertise usually reserved for an elite few. Inner Space, the Infinite Frontier. This is a voyage of story and study fashioned for you. Its purpose, to reveal to you the universe of mind, body, and spirit, to boldly take you where no one has taken you before.